Hi, everybody. We have with us Christiana. Thank you so much for joining our podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Ivy and Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. So before we get started, I always kind of want to know, who the heck am I listening to and why should I keep going? Right? So first, let me answer that for you. My name is Christiana Carter, as Ivy said, and I have been a clarity coach and strategic organizer for over 2 decades now. And I started working as a professional organizer, organizing people's spaces, right? But I realized if your space isn't set up based on the way that you think, you're just at a level of non-performing. You're not functioning at your full level. Then what I realized is if I could focus on just organizing someone's mind, their space and everything else would flow much easier. They could hire someone for a whole lot less to be able to do all the detail work. But what happens is you go from depending on somebody else to get your life functioning to actually becoming independent. And that is my goal with everybody. And again, what I do as a clarity strategist and clarity coach is I work with business owners, entrepreneurs, people who have a level of expertise in something. Now, let me think, if you're going, oh, maybe that's not me. Your life to this point has made you an expert at something, whether or not it's what you've overcome or what you've been through, or maybe a skill or talent that you have. The reason I do the clarity strategy work is I pull all that information out of you. So maybe you think you have value, but you can't quite access it. So what I do is I dump all that out of your brain. I find the structure flow and I give it back to you in a way where you can then now go share it, quantify it, get a stream of income, whatever it is that you want to do. But now you can harness your value.
So Christiana, my name is Dan. It's a pleasure to get to know you along with our audience today. I see a lot of synergies between what you do and what I do as well. In fact, one of the early branding that I used for my coaching was called life design. And I also have a background in, I'm not the designer themselves, but in residential home remodeling. And so we work primarily with architects and designers to put together the plans for the house. And I love those shows, like probably a lot of you do, like HGTV shows. I think there's a new one on Netflix called The Home Edit. I think that's the name of it. But it's all about redesigning your house. And I am a huge advocate of the same thing as the actual space you live in, where we're living in our mind. So getting that mind in order, right?
All right. If you're a geek on those shows, if you go to the Fixer Upper, which I love, Joanna Gaines, she has a new one now called Behind the Design. And she actually goes in and you can see her thought process on how she brings things. And you think, oh, on the show, it just shows up and it looks amazing. She has to rip things out, change things, has the wrong size. She says when you're planting the flower bed, you rip it out 3 times. So it's really beautiful. It's like you always see the finished product and you look at everybody and you think, wow, they have it together. Or, oh my God, their branding's amazing. Or, they're so far ahead of me. I really want to share with you. And what I've been passionate about sharing for 20 years is you're only sharing with people that are behind you, not in front of you. So there's plenty of people that want to know how to get to where you are. So you're not like on a Tony Robbins level teaching that. It's like, no, you're showing people how to get to the result that you got. And then as you grow, you keep bringing them along with you. So again, if you don't know your value, someone else is going to determine it for you. And especially now with the way things have changed, business is changing. So it's really coming to what can I contribute? What can I put in the marketplace where I can be of value and serve other people? And every single person in 20 years, I've never met one person that doesn't have value. So in case you're thinking you don't, you do.
So Christiana, the reason that we've invited you on this podcast today is because we want to give our listeners access to people they may never stumble across in regular life, right? So we bring on a broad diversity of people from all different backgrounds and professions and experiences, et cetera. And so I love that you do something very similar to what Ivy and I do, that we're all coaches. I think there's going to be a lot of great connection with us being coaches. But this interview is all about you. So when Ivy and I do our coaching, this is an early question we like to ask people. And the reason for this question is about something they may have wanted for their lives, but maybe they tried and failed and they gave up. Maybe they thought the probability was too low, or they maybe thought it was impossible. Like I could never have that. So this question is, if I was a genie and I could grant you just one wish, what would be that wish and why? But let me give you one rule. The rule is you can't become the genie and you can't wish for more wishes. That's it. Other than that, I'm looking for something that you want to seek out or wish you could have with just that one wish.
Oh, I actually interpreted that question differently when you when you had sent it to me earlier, because my wish really is for everybody to be able to see each other's value. Like that truly is my biggest wish. And if I can be a catalyst for that, or somebody else can be a catalyst for that, that to me is the icing, or the icing on the cake. But I want to give you a beware, because this is my pet peeve in this industry. If someone's telling you information and being the source of your information, run from them, because they are making it about them and not about you. It's about pulling out of you what is uniquely genius about you. So I guess my wish is everybody would be able to pull and see the diamond that they really are. And if I can be of support in getting you there, absolutely.
I can totally relate with that, because what I like to say is you have greatness inside of you. I mean,
Mhm.
you are worthy, you are valuable, and I see you. And whenever I come to a place where that's how I want to meet people, is to say that I really see them for who they are and work on my listening skills, for example. Amazing things happen
Mhm.
that people reveal about themselves, what they share and don't share. And so this is so awesome that you bring this out of people, because a lot of people don't realize the value they have in themselves, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
to what you said as well is that when I show up and do clarity work with you, I have no idea where it's going to go. None. I can say, okay, here's like the process we're going to go through, but what's going to be at the end? It's you. I don't know you yet. I'm going to get to know you and I'm going to pull it out. So I was really powerful. I was working with one client just the other day, and he is learning how to duplicate himself so he can grow his business. And it was fascinating. He had an idea of this is what I wanted. But what was so powerful is because I was just pulling on all these little threads, something entirely different came out that actually expanded the reach of his business even more, because I wasn't committed to defining it and putting it in a box and having it show up a certain way. So I love that about you. And I love that that's the way I like to play.
And that's one of the unique things about the structure and the way we do this podcast is that Ivy is amazing at bringing people on. Usually she has some background or relationship with, which is amazing. And at first I was like, I should do a ton of research and really like dive deep into this person's world, because that's what everybody else does. And then I thought, no, you know what's the best? The best is when I get to know this person along with the audience, because I don't have preconceived notions about you. I don't already think like, yeah, I've heard that story before because I've watched all these other interviews with you and you keep saying the same thing, which we tend to do if we're interviewed multiple times for things. So I like this approach where I'm curious and I'm interested in you. And then we just let this develop and flow naturally versus me having like an agenda for where I want it to go.
Absolutely. Because when you put people in a box like that, you, one of the, one of the tools that I use is a mind map. And when I teach people how to mind map, and I've done this for hundreds and hundreds of people, when I'm teaching mind mapping, everybody wants to dive to a computer. And but a computer is already defined for you. So if you try to stick your brain in a computer that already has boundaries, you're going to limit who you are. You're going to show up within that form. So I always say do it on paper so you can see who you are. Let's have a discovery like, hey, who am I? How am I going to show up if I have no boundaries? Kind of like, hey, if I could have any wish, what would that be? But the more you do that, the more that you can see who you are and how you show up, then that's going to give you the freedom to go places you may never have thought of going.
That is so true. The holding space to allow yourself to be creative, imagine who you want to be in the future, for example, and giving yourself permission that it's possible.
Mhm.
I love taking my clients from this is your reality today and this is where you want to be. Let's see how we can get you there faster, but let's see how we can get you there where you feel empowered and you feel even more of yourself. So, speaking of that, of people, what people or persons have made the biggest impact in your life?
First person I would say is Harvecker. So he had a company called Peak Potentials. And I went through that company when I always said I was a red hot mess. I was going through what I didn't know yet was a divorce. And, and I went through the company and I found my voice. If anyone noticed me, I would lose my voice immediately. And what happened going through those series of personal development workshops, I actually found my strength, my passion, my voice, and I got out of a really toxic relationship. So it was really amazing. And then not only that, I got the dream and the vision to be on stage to open other people up to a new possibility. And Harv was very, very challenging because he did not make it easy. I had to fight in order to be there, but I became one of his female assistant trainers. And I also ended up being a trainer at the global mastermind level. I actually helped design the global mastermind level, the $15,000 year-long mastermind program. But I did that for 9 years. So I was able to travel all around the world and all over the country for 9 years in different rooms, showing up, figuring out how to get people to like me and want to play with me within 15 minutes or less. And so I became a master of really helping people open up to a new possibility, which has been my greatest, greatest gift. So he is definitely one person that's made a massive difference.
So I also had the good fortune to do some of T. Harvecker's stuff. I started with his one book, the Millionaire book. Do you remember the
Millionaire
exact
Mind.
name?
Yes. Secrets
The
of the
Millionaire
Millionaire
Mind, which I loved. I had the audiobook version and I thought it was amazing. And then
Yes.
I purchased online a bunch of his, I think at the time they were like tape programs or something.
Yeah,
Could have
I
been
remember those days.
trying to remember what they were. But in either case, I thought they were really good quality stuff. So I used to work for Tony Robbins. So I thought there was a lot of similarities. Just
Yeah.
again, it's kind of the reason we do this. Like it's a different voice, right? They might be saying a similar thing, right? Get to the same general outcome, but you hear it sometimes very differently when you hear a different voice or a different story behind it or a different explanation for it. So I'm always curious about this for people. And I love the movie Back to the Future. So if you had a time machine and could travel back in time and visit your younger self, and you could offer them some advice, because then you know that advice you'd offer them there would help make your life even better today.
Enjoy the journey. Don't wait for this to get that, or don't play the waiting game. Like my favorite book is Dr. Seuss, So the Places We'll Go, right? The Waiting Place. I think it was definitely written for adults, not for kids. And I think I spent so much of my life waiting for dominoes to line up instead of just truly like going for it. And every step you take is another stone in the foundation of who you're becoming. So even if you think it's a U-turn, it's an incredible opportunity to flip it around. And one example I have of that is Joel Osteen, when he before he got into his huge stadium, he got into a battle and had attorneys come after him. He got into a huge legal battle and he was really upset about it. But what was amazing is he got through that. And then when he went to the big stadium, there was another legal battle. But because he'd already been through it, it didn't scare him off of taking the next step in his dream. He was like, oh, yeah, I've done this. Okay. So again, every single step that you have builds on each other. So just trust and be with it and just embrace it and do the best you can in every moment.
Speaking of that journey of embracing your journey, that's already somebody who is already in action. How do you get somebody who is, I want to do this, I want to do this, and they're just sitting there like at the edge and they will not?
Perfect. Absolutely. What I would say is start validating every single thing that you're doing right. Everything. Because we think one thing that I was trained, especially in personal development, and this is counterproductive. We're trained inappropriately this way, in my experience, that we have to shoot for some big goal or some big win. Okay, yes, but every big win lays with putting one block down, then another, then another. And it's not the quality of the wins, it's the quantity that changes the tide. So focus on every little thing you're doing right. Hey, I got up, I made the bed, I did this. It doesn't even have to be towards a massive end. Hey, I answered my emails. Hey, you know what? I completed this task. Hey, whatever it is, but just start counting all the things you're doing right and only keep your attention on what you're doing right and and validate yourself every day. Validate yourself. And what will happen is your entire world will open up, because the reason you're not taking action is because you're looking at everything that's gone wrong. And whatever you look for, you get. So if you're not liking the results that you're getting, it simply means you're looking for something that's not serving you. So at any moment you can shift, no matter whether you're 15 or 85, it does not matter. you can immediately start shifting for what's working, what's good, and start validating, and your entire world will open up.
That's great advice, but I think the internet is full of bad advice, right? There are tons of people trying to be like the latest and greatest guru, writing a book, coming up with a program, charging a ton of money, promising you the world. What have you come across that you want to help like warn people about, even if it's just general, like bad advice, right? And you want to say, hey, steer clear of that. That's not going to work. Here's what works better. What would you like to recommend people steer clear of?
So my big pet peeve in this industry is someone's like, oh, you need a podcast, you need a book, you needed this, you needed that. I have actually 3 clients that have come out of this course creation. I'm not going to name the person, but there's this course creation thing. And they're stuck because they're like, okay, I need this. But let me say, I liken it to this. This is, I think, the example I always use. It's over the holidays, right? Have you ever had those Christmas lights, right? And they're in the box and they're beautiful and you put them up and then the next year they're in a big ball and then they're all entangled. And so you go to get them out the next year and there's like, I always say like 3 types of people. They're the ones that look at the ball and go, screw this. And then they throw it out, and they're the people that are always onto something new. They don't ever go back because it's too cluttered to get the goods out of it. Then the second one is the person who will maybe pull 1 or 2 strings out, but it's still too cumbersome. So then they'll go with what they have. Oh, you know what? I really like writing. I'll write a book about writing. It's just whatever. And then there's the third client, which I love to work with, which is I call it a clarity jumpstart. The clarity jumpstart is where we dump your brain. We just basically take everything that's in your head, we dump it on paper, and then we look at, what kind of lights do you have? Now we know what resources we have. Now we say, hey, how do you want to design your house? So back to your question, if someone's promising you that they're the answer to your problem, you were the answer that you've been looking for all along. You're looking outside versus looking in. Really, it comes from you. So if someone's trying to be your source of information, run. Second, what is it? Like, what are your lights? You have to know what to design. So I was working with another client and we were going through everything. And she's like, well, I love doing nutrition and I love doing health coaching and I love doing dance and movement. And I said, I think there might be something in there. We did a clarity jumpstart with her in just 2 hours, not even that much. We did clarity jumpstart. And what we actually ended up doing is we figured out what her process is, and you can plug anything into it. So she can plug this, and the dancing, the food, and the nutrition into this. But it's a basic life skill that we've actually figured out for her, because we were willing to pull the lights out and see that this is what was actually fueling the car. So now she can go back to that program and say, okay, here's my message. What do you want to apply it to? You can apply it to this. You can apply it to this. And here's her marketing. But it really can work for anybody. And now I also went back to her story. And part of what I do is I pull your story out and all the main turning points of your story. And what happens is you now are an authority and you have this absolute certainty about all the things you thought maybe were U-turns are things that are like giving you that certainty that you know you can do it. And so her certainty has gone through the roof. Her speaking about how she's holding herself has gone through the roof in 2 hours. And now she has the beginning of like, oh my gosh, something completely different that is what she stands for. And then in the industry, she can say, oh, now I can plug a podcast into that. Now I can plug a book into that. But if you're trying to get the end before you understand who you are or what your value is, you're always going to be running enthusiastically down the wrong path. And odds are they're going to sell you a step that you're not even at yet. So you're going to buy it. You're going to have to back up and then buy another step. And you're going to back up and buy another step. And most people that are selling things to you are people that make money selling things to other people, not actually delivering it themselves. So just be mindful of that. And they know how to manipulate your emotions. You're amazing. You're beautiful. You're perfect exactly as you are, no matter, for women, oh my God, if you have a body part or whatever you don't love, you're perfect right now. You will never be this young. You will never be this amazing as you are in this moment. So just embrace it and realize you have value. As soon as you see that, everything opens up and you stop looking outside of yourself and you start coming from within.
I think Ivy and I both totally agree with what you just said. See if this aligns, which is people tend to jump ahead in the process. And because of that, I think people get overwhelmed because the gap between the person they're modeling what they want and where they're at is so big. And there's so many steps along the way that they often give up. Let's say, even if they take some steps, they buy some stuff, they move towards something, it's too big of a gap. And so I always try to say to people, like, start with one, like, if you have your message or your coaching program or whatever you have, start with just one client, and you know what I mean? And then just keep getting better, refine. Maybe you get a second client. Maybe that client goes away. You have another chance to start over and with a new client, et cetera. But yes, you don't need to take all these steps to write a book or have a program or be running ads online. That Ivy and I talk about that all the time. It's one of our common themes is we participate in a similar like coaching training program, and they spend a whole day talking about how to advertise as a coach. And Ivy and I have a agreement that it's like, you know what makes more sense is we'll call it grassroots marketing, meaning like networking, getting to know people, but not fishing in the internet pond. And I'm not saying the internet pond's not great. You should have a website. You should have all the collateral that makes you, legitimate online, but you don't need to be spending money to advertise yourself to people who don't know you, because here's what you're up against. You're up against the people spending $1 million a month in the same pond that you're trying to fish in, spending whatever you're able to afford. So it's like start, grow. And I'm telling you, once you're big enough, like that marketing actually works, because they're not trying to go, who is this person? They're going, oh, I know who that person is. And then it all kind of grows like naturally along the way. Does that align with what you're saying?
It does. And I think what you're saying in there is, you said start with what you have. So I hear that absolutely. And as you start going through it, your message will start coming out. You'll start repeating a lot of the same things. You'll find that the more that you serve someone else, the more you hone who you are. You'll hone your message. And also the other thing that really resonates with me, and that is that the more you communicate, the more you put yourself out there. And Ivy, you can speak to this. I remember when we got on Zoom for the first time, because you had no idea how to use it. I've been using this since like Skype, like back in the day. But but you were willing to jump in. And the more you put communications out, the more, it doesn't even matter if it's good communication. It doesn't even matter. It just matters that you're putting it out. You're getting more exposure, and you're just sharing what you're passionate about. And again, it's not saying that I'm the all be all expert, which is what a lot of people are saying. Like, I would say a true expert is somebody who can, as a coach, exteriorize, meaning step outside of, which is why coaches are great, because you're in the forest and a coach is outside of the forest and can say, hey, okay, or, you're in the maze and the coach is outside with an aerial view going, okay, go left, go right, right? And they can guide you through it. What I feel is that, oh, hold on, I totally just lost my train of thought. When you have two ideas and you can keep this in, I think that's great. You have two ideas and they come in and they sort of cancel each other out. I always say, whoops, I just split two roads. But again, really what it comes down to is making sure that you are the source in everything that you do, that you are looking to yourself, that you're cultivating that. So yes, go with what you have. When I first started, Alex Mondosian was my mentor. I didn't have a website. I didn't have business cards. I didn't have brochures for 10 years. I had the top 4 LA psychiatrists referring me to their patients, and I had word of mouth. And I went to organizing, professional organizing conferences, and there were all these people who had clients booked out for like months. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, my clients graduate, I get them done, and then I do tune-ups with them. Like, they don't need me every day, because I'm building what works for them, not what works for me. If I do what works for my brain, so if you coach your clients and you imprint your languaging on them, they're dependent on you for life, because they don't have the associations you have. So they have to keep coming back to you to get the associations. But if you can pull out of them what their associations are, go with what you have, but with your own words, that's where you're going to be able to have lasting results, right? You don't need to have the crazy business cards, all that stuff. Yes, that's great, but get revenue. So back to Alex Mondosian, he said, when I was putting my first thing out, I was terrified. And he goes, put out a webinar. And he was doing telemarketing, right? Telemarketing calls. So this is like a long time ago. And I did my first Skype class. And he said, okay, in 24 hours, I want you, because everyone takes way too long creating something, right? Just to get started. So a lot of it is the fear of just getting there. So in the first 24 hours, you have 24 hours, lay out 4 ideas with 3 or 4 bullet points under it, and be done. and have an action step, one simple action step after each section, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to have 4 modules. It's going to be 1 month, and I'm going to teach these 4 principles. And at the end of each principle, here's the one simple action step that they do. Not 50, not 100 people have a life. One action step that they can do to get a result. And you just lay that out in 24 hours. Go, right? You're done. In 24 hours, you should have a result. Now, call up, start dialing for dollars. Call up all the people that you know and say, hey, I had this amazing program, and start explaining it. You don't have to build it yet. Start explaining it. And they'll go, oh, I like this. How about less of that and more of this? So you start adapting it to what people are saying. So you dial for dollars. I ended up making $2,300 in a month because I dialed for dollars. I only had like, oh God, was it like 8 or 10 people? Like not even that much. I think I wasn't even charging that much. And I said, hey, I'm going to just do it really inexpensive for my first class, and you can repeat for free for every time I go through it. And they're like, really? Yes. And they want to support you because they know, love, and trust you. So call them, check them up, right? Get involved, let them be a part of the solution. But again, if you do something like that, and then you just get started, what you'll find is it's not as scary as you think. My God, it took me 50 hours to do my first module. I had to learn everything. Now there's like, a YouTube video for everything, but I got down to where I could like build it very quickly by the last class, but I built it every week before I delivered it. So up until the deadline of the class, I was still like building everything. But you know what? I got it done because the deadline of people who were paying that were waiting for me to do it, it worked. So to what you're saying, absolutely get started. I hope that gives you a little bit. And also, hey guys, if you want like just a free clarity consultation, no agenda, you can just go to meetwithchristiana.com, book a 30-minute clarity consult, and I'm here to help you, point you in the right direction.
What an incredible way to share your journey and how you became successful with it.
Isn't that funny?
Actually, I'm very curious about this. What is one of your biggest failures and how did you overcome it? What lesson did you learn from it?
I think one of my favorite failures, I decided I wanted to be an assistant trainer, and I come out of an abusive marriage. And if anyone looked at me, I'd lose my voice. It's a bit of a problem being on stage. If anyone's looking at you, like everyone's looking at you. So I went through and I got on stage, and I remember my first 3 events that I got on stage where they actually paid me to get up there. And I was so robotic. I was like, everybody, please stand up. Everybody, please sit down. It was not sexy at all, but I was willing, and I showed up. Like everybody is unsexy and sloppy in the beginning, because as we learn, we always improve. That's how we're actually designed. If you do a piece of art every day or like once a week for a month, every time it will improve. So that's how we're designed. We didn't come out of the womb dancing. We like stood up, we fell down. So just expect that. So first of all, give yourself a break, expect it. So I did that. And then I remember so I'd done 3 events with Peaks, and then I was coming to my 4th event in a month. I had no stamina to hold, and it was a room of 750 people in Los Angeles. And my soon-to-be ex-husband was on the camera recording me on stage. And what was cool about getting the 3 events, a lot of people didn't even know that I had gotten on stage with all the friends that I had gone through. We'd all talked about being trainers. And then I got on stage, and they had this weird clap that they used to do. I don't know if you remember this. Or did you ever go to an event, Dan? Okay, you did. So they used to do this weird clap. It would go, right? And I'm beat challenged in like, if there's a different beat with the music to find that, like, I was just like, I couldn't quite get it. And I didn't see the significance of it anyway. So there's a room of 750 people. I'm doubting myself. So I'm not holding myself. I'm letting my friends who aren't on stage give me feedback on how to be on stage, because they have no life skill. They didn't get up and do it. And I did not own my power. And I remember Dr. Brian Allman was in the back of the room, and he just watched me crash and burn. I got on stage, it was 750 people, and I hadn't been in a room in over 500 people. And what they don't tell you, and you may never know if you haven't had this experience, that over 500 people, there's a 30-second delay for people to catch up with you. So when I'm going like this, and then I kept adjusting my speed. Well, I didn't wait for anyone to catch up, so I couldn't clap it out. So I went back to like follow the leader, and I'm like, okay, well, let's do this. And my best girlfriend, who is the lead female trainer, came running up on stage and clapped it out for me. And then what was beautiful about it is I immediately said, all right, how many of you are so happy you are not me right now? And everybody burst out laughing. And I was just like, see, this is what happens when you think about not screwing up. What happens, right? And I just laughed about it. And I just said, you know what? I'm totally human. But Harv said I wasn't a strong trainer. He didn't want me on a stage anymore. So I had to fight. And so he took me off stage. I had to call trainers and ask them to please request me. I had to go to Malaysia to train because he wouldn't let me train in the US. So I fought and fought and fought. And then Alex was wonderful. He actually said that he would work with me. And so I did the events with him. And when I found my own voice, I actually wrote a book. Hold on, I think I have it right here. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. This is my book I wrote. It's called Experiment with God. So it's what would happen. What if you live God's vision of your life for 30 days? And what if you believed what God believed to be true about you? And then all of a sudden it shuts up your little voice because it's not you. It's an experiment. You're just going to show up every day and see what happens. So this is about tuning into your still small voice within. So you can really start listening inside versus outside. And this came out of that experience of when I failed miserably. I got taken off stage. My dream disappeared. And then this book came out. And I did this book for 30 days. And then Harv came back and said, what happened to you? I could control a room. I could command a room. I could get people to do whatever because I stopped looking outside of myself for validation and I found it inside. So my biggest failure gave me my strength. And became a published author.
That is awesome. I love it. So other than your own book, if one of your friends was sentenced to life in prison and the warden said, here's the deal. You only get one book the rest of your life. This is the only book you're ever going to have, throughout your stay. What book would you tell them? You got to have this book with you. What would be that book?
Oh my God. I think it would be Oh, the Places We'll Go by Dr. Seuss. I mean, because if you think about it, it really talks about life. You're going to get hung up. People are going to fly on. You're going to be left behind. You're going to go into you're going to go into a slump, and slumping yourself isn't easily done. But if you keep with it, you'll end up soaring to high heights. So for me, I feel like if you can just really get that lesson, he was so wise. If you can really just get that lesson and realize it's all a cycle. And if, someone on stage said, that I put on stage, said, you're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or heading into a storm. So it's like that cycle. You may just be on a plateau riding the wave right now, but the wave doesn't last. The change always happens. So it's about being flexible.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that also just ties in with how you embrace your journey of life and embrace the seasons and you embrace the transformations so that the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's just all part of, life and patterns. It happens where there's good, there's bad. And so what is your best advice that you want to impart our audience with?
That with every bad, so everything in our universe, in the physical universe, is always a plus and a minus. So you cannot have bad without good preceding it. So if you think you can't, it's because you know you can. If you go through something like that was horrific failure, right? And my ex-husband was watching me crash, which was like worse, right? Because then it was just awful. But what happened is I found my fire, I found my strength, I found my fight, I found myself. So again, everything that ever happens, there's always a positive side. So back to my wish for the world is that you could see the good in every person, in every situation, even despite all invitations otherwise. And trust me, there's plenty of people in my life that give me lots of opportunities for invitations. But again, if I could just focus on the good, if I can just see what's amazing about somebody, if I can just see what's amazing about a situation, if I can just stay in that state, in that focus of, I'm only going to see the good, and I realize every single person's perfect and we're all figuring it out and we're all messy, but we're all doing the best that we can. And if you can keep that mindset, or not even that mindset, but just that knowing that, you know what, I never do anything without a good intent behind it, right? And even if I've done something that maybe doesn't look like it had a good intent behind it, I was still trying to get a good intent in my life out of something. So everything every person's amazing and beautiful. Every person has value. If you can't see it, book a session with me. I'm happy to like just tease some pieces out so you can have something to hold on to. Because back to what you said about seeing people, Ivy, I said this before. When I first got on stage, I was in an abusive relationship. I stood up on stage and said I wanted to be a trainer. And the assistant trainer took me and said, I see you. And I said, oh, that's great. Ah, da, da. And she's like, stop it. Like, I see you. And I fell apart. All I needed was someone to tap the eggshell and I crumbled. And it was that gift of her tapping me and saying, I see you, and having someone believe in me until I could believe in myself. And not even believe in myself, that I know I can do it. I know I'm capable. So I had that inner strength. So it really is the most amazing thing. So if you don't have a coach, or get somebody who can champion who you're going to be, but make sure it's about you, not about them. They should be asking more questions and listening more than giving advice and information. And if you find that they're looking good and pontificating, just run. Please run. I've refunded many coaches in my day because it was really about them. And you have all the answers inside of you. You have everything you need. It's just coming down. You get what you look for. And we're designed to look for the bad. So just focus on the good and everything will start going. And like you said, pull the thread that you're on, take the step, keep stepping forward. And it's only when you're in inaction that fear happens. So long as you're in action, like, Ivy, I've watched your journey from no social presence video to now where you're doing a podcast. Like, you have completely shifted, and I honor you and I love you so much because you're such an inspiration to everybody who has no idea of what it was like. And I would go back and I would actually save your early recording so people can see it wasn't always sexy, but I did it. And the more that I did it, now it doesn't even matter. God, if it fails, now it's interesting. Do something, fail. Because now at least I get to like go, ooh, how can I handle that? So you're capable. You've got it. Just remember that about yourself. And if you don't, get somebody who can remind you.
What is the best way for people to connect with you? You've mentioned booking a session. What
Yes.
is your website? What's the best way for people to reach out?
So the direct way is just go to Meet with Christiana, which is CHRISTIANA. So Meet, MEET, with Christiana.com. That's a 30-minute clarity session. I'm happy to serve. Just feel free to book it. And again, my goal is just for you to get what's best for you. I mean, really, that's the place I come from. It's not really a great business model, but it's a great humanity model. And I would rather do right by people long term. So go ahead, do that. If you want to check out more about me, you can go to claritymapping.com. claritymapping.com. You can check it out. That's my website. I made it myself. It's not super sexy, but it doesn't need to be.
Thank you so much for your time, Christiana.